So this week we were asked to read a couple of articles, view a couple of videos, and make a determination about, in my mind, the relationship between things like copyright and file sharing and how those were impacted or created by the advent of the World Wide Web. I'm going to take you through the articles first and then kind of give you my idea about what I think is going on here, and how I think some of the issues could be solved or what some of the issues are. So what you see here are the 3 articles that we had to review before thinking about the prompt for this week's video blog. So Article 1 was, I believe, the effect of file sharing on record sales. Article 2 was copyright, the internet, and other legal issues. And Article 3 was enforcement and control of piracy, copying, and sharing in the movie industry. And so what these did was take a look at intellectual property issues as they impact different sects of society, and if there really is or has been a huge impact on these industries because of file sharing or other intellectual property issues. So after reading Article 1, which is this article right here, the determination was that no, file sharing did not impact record sales, at least not significantly. So while file sharing occurs, and while it occurred at a large rate in a period of time that was analogous to the time when record sales might have been declining, the reason that record sales were declining was not file sharing. And I think I can kind of buy into that idea. Article 2 was taking a more in-depth look at a variety of different issues surrounding the internet and intellectual property. It specifically focused on copyright, online service provider liability, database protection, obscenity, and privacy. All in all, this article was a little too legally harsh for me, I think, that there are definitely issues with file sharing and copyright issues, but a lot of what they were saying to me was bordering on infringing on First Amendment rights. So that's mostly what I took out of that article. And then Article 3 took an interesting look at the advent of file sharing in terms of movies and piracy and how that has impacted the movie industry. It took a similar stance as it did this from a similar angle as the file sharing article, although it didn't come to the same conclusion. So after reading the 3 articles and thinking about what the issues are with intellectual property rights and the internet and the ease of sharing things that are not necessarily yours, I started to really think about and focus on one question, which is, whose fault is it? So I really related to the professor at OU who talked about the onus really being on the record companies and perhaps the movie producers or movie companies rather than being on the students. And that's not to take accountability off the students, because I do think at a certain level, stealing is stealing. If you're taking 500,000 songs a day off the internet and burning them onto CDs and giving them to your friends, stealing is stealing, and that's wrong. And I'll get to kind of my feelings on that later in this video, but at the same time, is it the responsibility of these companies to change with the times? Is it the responsibility of these companies to come up with more creative solutions for how students can get access to things like videos and music and not have to pay outrageous prices for them, or allowing them to still get them in a convenient way, maybe via the internet, and paying for them and kind of circumventing piracy altogether? What I realized is I don't really know whose fault it is. And it's probably a mix of record companies or production companies not changing as quickly and people taking it into their own hands to use the resources that they have available to them. So when I started thinking about this and how it might be related to perhaps the use of internet in our schools, or how it might be related to education in general, I thought about a couple things. And the first thing I thought about was, are we educating our students? So in a similar way to the acceptable use policies that we talked about a couple weeks ago, and the fact that we have the ability and the resources to teach our students what is and is not okay behavior for the internet, are we using this opportunity to do that? Are we using this opportunity to teach our students that morally and ethically it's wrong to take something that isn't yours without paying for it? So I think that this is something really that we should be thinking about and doing more of in our classrooms, so that rather than trying to limit students' access to things, again, we're giving them full access and showing them how to navigate a world where they have full access to things like videos and music. The second thing that I thought about was taking that into consideration, providing students with full access. Are there safeguards in place to protect our schools? So are we limiting the applications that can be downloaded so that students can't download file sharing tools onto school computers? Are we checking for those kinds of things? Basic safeguards for the schools. Number 3, are we modeling good behavior? And I think this is a big one, and one that we can easily do, mostly just by using tools, perhaps like iBooks or Apple Music, things that we pay for or that have a value, but that can also be used to get us that convenience that I think people are looking for when they're pirating music. So are we showing students, there are tools out there that you can use to get this information at a quicker speed whilst not violating copyright laws. I also started to think about families. So are we educating families? Are we talking to families about these issues, the fact that they exist? Are we showing them, things to look for, so that they can also be asking their students or their children, what exactly are you doing on the internet? Are you file sharing? Are you illegally downloading videos? Are you looking at material you shouldn't be looking at? If you are, why? Here are some, and showing them here are the resources that you can give your student to get material in a better way. And then the last thing I kind of started to think about was, has the further development of the internet helped to offset these issues more and more? So when I think about piracy and things like Napster and LimeWire, and sites that were used to illegally share files in the past, it kind of struck me that those were things that kind of were booming with the advent and the real takeoff of the World Wide Web and access to that. And so I know part of these are legal issues that have kind of resolved some of the file sharing problems that were, issues with the law, but has the development of the internet really helped to offset these issues by doing exactly what that professor at OU was saying, which was come up with creative solutions to kind of combat these problems. So one thing that I think of when I think about this is Apple Music. And this is a relatively new invention, but you pay a 1-month flat fee of, I think, $15 a month. And for that price, you can get access to any music that you want at any point through your phone. So rather than having people going out for convenience and downloading an illegal file sharing app, they can just pay $15 a month, and right on their phone, they have the music that they want, and they know they're not doing anything wrong, and they still get the convenience that they previously had. Another thing that I thought of was Netflix and other streaming sources. So things like Hulu, those are the main ones. But again, you're paying a flat fee, $8 a month or so, plus the cost of Wi-Fi, And for that price, you have access to everything that's on Netflix and Hulu. And again, the issue of convenience is solved. It's right there. And the fact that you're paying for it gets around those issues of copyright infringement or intellectual property issues. And then the last thing I thought of was things like Redbox and iTunes movie rentals. So I think, again, if we're looking at good ways to utilize and leverage technology, these are the ways that I think companies have come up with to do that, to kind of counteract the issue of non-payment for artistic goods and services. Overall, that's kind of where I'm at with this process and thinking through some of these issues. I appreciate you listening to this, and feel free to put comments or questions in on the post. Thank you.